name's Ernie Bray. I'm the CEO of X2 Development Group, and here today to show off our AR-X Lightfighter and the unique features that make it what it is. X2 Dev Group started about 3 years ago to continue the development of our advanced suppressors that were designed specifically to meet military requirements for essentially zero back pressure, but also be quiet, thermally efficient, low or no flash, etc. From our work with Tier 1 groups and retired, Tier 1 Special Forces operators, they asked for specific products to solve problems that they were encountering and things that they needed. And there was a consensus that the industry was not really listening and responding. So they asked if we could. And so I think that's one of the things we excel at is actually listening, and then being able to overcome the engineering challenges and manufacturing challenges to make a product. So one of the things that sets the company apart is that we have kind of the outside the box thinking, the advanced design, and the ability to then put that into metal. And within the Lightfighter, there's actually individual products that we'll talk about that can be purchased separately. But what we wanted to do with this was really not just do another AR-15. The market certainly has enough AR-15s out there. It has enough muzzle devices and charging handles and things that for a small, innovative company, it makes no sense just to do Me Too products. We have to do something or things that really are exceptional, that solve problems, that address issues, and that elevate the individual products. That's what we really sought to do here, not have a Me Too gun or Me Too products, but really do something that was unique and that elevated the platform. To start out, we'll just start at the muzzle, we'll work our way back. The VF-18 bent forward brake was actually one of our first products. This is now and I would say it's 4th or 5th generation, but we continue to listen and refining it, making it slimmer and more efficient. The consensus in the industry was that you can't have a muzzle brake and a flash hider and combine them. It won't work. And certainly the way that it was done, it didn't work. Where you had half flash hider, half muzzle brake, all the flash occurred in the muzzle brake portion, and why have a flash hider on the end of a muzzle brake that's causing a huge amount of flash? The other thing was the concussive effect of muzzle brakes. This isn't well known throughout the industry, but muzzle brakes are dangerous. And certainly on the military side, there has over 12, 13 years, they've been researching things like cumulative traumatic brain injury and other damage due to the concussive effects of small arms fire. Even if you're wearing hearing protection, people don't understand that the eardrum moves the equivalent of 1 nitrogen molecule, and at 5.5 pounds of blast over pressure, you can burst the eardrums. An A2 flash hider on a 10.5-inch AR Mark 18 puts out about 12.9 or 13 pounds per square inch. If you put on a muzzle brake, you're doubling that, tripling that. A lot of times that's directed back at the shooter and bystanders. Certainly you have then a huge amount of muzzle flash with muzzle brakes, so it really makes those ineffective for tactical operations, for combat, and pretty much everybody hates you at the range if you're shooting a muzzle brake. You're blowing stuff off people's benches, you need to go get your crowns reattached, and that's why. So cumulative traumatic brain injury, for instance, any blast over pressure above 12 psi is going to cause cumulative traumatic brain injury. So the challenge for us was to develop a device that would cut the recoil, act as a blast diverter, breaking down the blast over pressure, safely directing it forward so that anything basically from here back, you're not getting the concussive effect. Make it an effective flash hider, also muzzle neutral, so you're not getting muzzle down bias that a lot of muzzle brakes cause. Flash hiders typically have no muzzle control, so you're going to get muzzle rise. So we wanted something that just kept the muzzle level, cut the recoil, and was a very effective flash hider, and again, the blast over pressure mitigation. So that was a pretty tall order to do all of that in one muzzle device. So we had to really delve deep into the physics of how these things work, and most of your muzzle brakes and even your flash hiders use simple flow. And so with simple flow on a muzzle brake, you're just compressing the gases against one or more baffle walls, and that compresses those down, and those are then blown out at higher pressure. That's where you get the concussive effect. Using complex flow, you can see a huge amount of microstructures in the device, and at the end you have these bypass ports that angle down near to the bore, and so that's bypassing the gases gases, moving them down the device, and then as they expand, compress, expand, compress, expand, and compress, you're creating forward thrust. And that's how we're able to divert the blast forward, but still not increase recoil, but reduce recoil. It also helps reduce the muzzle flash. So you're basically looking at a little bit better than an A2 flash hider, maybe not quite as good as some of the 4-prong, but as you get it into shorter barrels, more unburnt powder, it actually excels and it does better than most other devices. But it's muzzle neutral, again, it's reducing recoil, and you get that blast diversion. So this is safe to shoot in and around people, team members, tactical operations. You've got a very, very effective device, and this has 2 granted patents on it. So the next thing is the Trident Barrel, and we call it Trident because it came out of work with the Crane Naval Surface Warfare Center some years ago when we were trying to qualify some 5.56 optimized rounds. The problem that we were having was as the barrel heated, you would get heat-induced point of impact shift. Your group dispersion would open up, and that makes it harder to qualify the round. So I really started deep diving, research on barrels, thermal properties, all of the things that would make a barrel accurate, the barrel harmonics. The Trident Barrel really brings all of that together. One, you have a lightweight barrel and you have about 400% greater cooling, and you have a profile on it that gives you almost a perfect barrel harmonic. And that's really important. With the compound fluting and heavy fluting, you tend to move the heat longitudinally, and you have a very even heating and cooling profile. So that's going to make it really resistant to any point of impact shift as the barrel warms up, heats up, or just the temperature on it changes. A couple of the things also that we added, you'll notice that here you have some dog nose screw sockets. And so when we put the gas block on, the gas block has dog nose screws that go in and engage those holes. So a couple problems that solves. One, you don't have to pin the gas block on to keep it on there. It's not going to rotate. It also is going to allow it to precisely realign. So if it's removed and put back on, you don't have to sit there and try to realign that gas block. That's going to go exactly right back on, and it's going to stay on. And you can, if you want, you can just stake those screws in so you don't have to red Loctite them. And that's going to keep it in, and it's also going to, again, keep it from rotating, and it's going to create precise realignment. But one of the things that we were asked to do by one of the federal agencies is they said we can't have an adjustable gas block. And any adjustable gas block, even ours, are somewhat inefficient in that you have internal volume that gas can leak into, and they tend to leak, and then they're less gas efficient. The problem that you have with all of the other designs is that I call them, they're essentially an impingement gas block, that you have a round hole, and then you're bringing a set screw in from the bottom, and at the bottom you're impinging a very small amount of the gas, and as it moves more towards the center, it's very progressive, and it blocks more and more and more and more of the gases till you get to the center or apex of the circle, and then beyond that, it gets more problematic. They also tend to load up and carbon up, and then the gun can short stroke and stop functioning, and then you get gas leakage, and a lot of times the screws are moved out through gas pressure. And even some of the designs that have detents and things to hold them in, the gas pressure can move the detent out and fuse it out, and so then the screw moves itself out. So we wanted something that would precisely change the gas port size, and so we have these gas regulator modules that you can see that those have a specific port size. So you have a set screw that basically comes in from the back and holds those in. There's a notch. You see that there's index hash marks. You have little dots on there that tell you basically the size. You can also do custom sizes. So you're putting that in there, and you're actually changing the port size on the barrel. You're just regulating the gas down. You're not going to get turbulent flow. You'll get a laminar flow through it. So you get much more efficient flow, and you're not going to get the leakage. So that's the benefit of this fixed configurable. This is patent pending. The worm drive is a granted patent. Moving further back, you can see on the Handguard the way that it attaches and interfaces to the upper receiver. The upper receiver has a trunnion that extends out. It's heavily fluted, so you get minimal thermal contact points out into the Handguard. Well, there's several things that we were asked to improve on the Handguard. One was the longitudinal rigidity. And so one of the things that we got complaints on from our current special forces, a lot of the retired guys, was as they loaded the gun and loaded into on barricades and things, that they were getting a large amount of flexion in the handguard. Also, if the handguard is holding onto that barrel nut and the barrel nut is in contact with the barrel, you're changing your barrel harmonics. And in many designs, it can cause quite a bit of point of impact shift. And so this doesn't touch the barrel at all. And to take it off, you use just this comes with it, a 1/4-inch hex. You take out QD sockets and it just slides right off. And when you put it back on, you can't misalign it. It has these 4 tabs that index, and so there's really no way that in combat or harsh use that you can ever rotate that out. And again, as you take it off and put it back on, you have precise realignment. You're not sitting there and trying to get everything realigned. So 2 problems solved. So we're maintaining an absolute free float on the barrel. We're not changing the barrel harmonics. We're not going to affect point of impact shift, and you have a handguard that the longitudinal rigidity is extreme. You would almost have to put a dial indicator out here to look at deflection when you heavily loaded on it. Next thing, getting down into the receiver design, you have a unique design and there's really nice lines to it, but that was on purpose. So we hired industrial design engineers to go over and blend all this, because you don't want hard edges. So the more that you're running the gun, and guys that will run thousands of rounds a week in training wanted no hard edges. They also wanted the controls to where the controls wouldn't snag. You don't want your bolt catch sticking out kind of like the Alfred E. Newman's ears, where when they're running all kitted up, you're going to snag that. So they said, look, we can't have anything that's snagging. The other thing that they asked for was they wanted to be able to run it left or right-handed without modifying the shooting grip. And then also from a serviceability standpoint, from the armors, a lot of the designs are very complicated. You can pull up like their patent drawings and things like that, and you'll see a huge amount of shafts and springs and detents and proprietary parts that go into the receiver. If you get a lot of crap in there, the gun becomes non-functional because you have all of these parts up into the receiver where crap can get down in there and stop it from functioning. Here we have ambidextrous bolt catch lever and your magazine release, and there's one dog nose screw that holds that in. If you took that out and took those parts off, you have just a non-ambi gun. So it's brutally simple, but it's where they need it to be. So I'm a left-handed shooter. Here's my mag release. I can operate my bolt catch, and again, without modifying that shooting grip, I can be on everything. For the right-handed shooter, one of the things they ask for is that a lot of the ambi receivers, in fact most of them, have some type of button or paddle all the way up here. So a lot of times, you've got you're modifying that shooting grip. That's a press and that's a press, and you've got 2 that are basically the mechanical skill here is they're both a press. So they'll wear rappelling gloves or welding gloves to rappel. You insert the magazine, you go to hit that bolt release, and you wind up dropping the magazine. So what we wanted was something where the motor skill was separate, and then without modifying the shooting grip, I can just operate that. So drop my mag, lock back, released. On a left-handed shooter, you're locked back, you drop your mag, and as I come up, seat the mag, and then just with my thumb hit that. So I can do one motion to load the gun. So again, very simple, but the ergonomics on it are where they need to be. You can see, again, no hard edges. You've got a good mechanical lock right there, a proper index. You're indexed high, and I wanted this to index just like a really good pistol. So you come up on it, and you're right there. The charging handle is ambidextrous, and this is our Jackal charging handle. And again, that was designed specifically in response to the operator saying, look, we can't have something that snags on gear. We clear a live round, lock the bolt carrier back, we're in and out of vehicles. The charging handles would catch and come out. They would bend, break. They would break levers off. Almost all of your designs out there have levers that are radially opposed, which means they're pinned here and then they move back. That puts a binding action on the shaft and moves the gun, because as I'm pulling back, I'm also pushing to the right or pushing to the left. This, you can see, is just all straight and linear. If I lock it back, you can see I'm pulling as hard as I can. It's not coming out. Indeed, you can basically hang the entire gun, even with optics and everything, and it's not going to come out. But with these indexing tabs, as soon as I index, you can see that it just comes straight back. And if I'm in a prone position, I'm coming straight back. I'm not pulling the gun because I've pinned it here, so I'm putting that binding action or that left or right. It's a straight linear back and forth. You also have a solid head, so I'm not going to break levers off if I'm mortaring it to clear a stuck round, and it helps block any excess gas that's coming back. Moving back into the stock and buffer tube, you can see how nicely things are blended, but there's also a few things that we're doing there. One of the things, complaints that we had gotten, for guys that were running like a 1:6 with offset RDS, is they would be shooting with the RDS and they would transition and the stock would catch on the gear and it would strip the buffer tube out, and the buffer tube and the stock would move, the buffer retainer would come out, and at that point you're pretty well screwed. And so they wanted to fix to the anti-rotation. So you can see that there's 3 grooves here, not just the one. We also fully capture the buffer retainer, and then there's 3 tabs on there that basically index onto that. There's nowhere that that's going to go. You can see that the sling swivel socket sticks out. So that's going into the receiver, and then it's captured by the grip. So the grip's capturing the receiver end plate, the QD socket's going into the receiver, you've got 3 anti-rotation tabs, so you're just simply not going to have that problem. The Lightfighter's just right at 6 pounds right now, and it's very accurate. Everyone that we put out and tested thus far will hold under a minute of angle all day long. Most are holding half to a quarter, 5-shot groups at 100. So very, very accurate. That was another thing that was requested, that it be light and that it be accurate so that they can get out to very long ranges for the 5.56. The balance point is right there in front of the handguard, so it's perfectly balanced. So when you add optics, you still have just a really great feel to it. It's going to handle really, really well. And again, all of your ergonomics of how that indexes is there. You have also M-locks here at the 45. That's basically the AR-X Lightfighter. Again, we've got, I think there's 6 granted patents so far, 2 on the muzzle device, charging handle, gas block, and the lower receiver ambi controls. This is all manufactured here in the United States. We have our manufacturing facility in Boise, Idaho. This is almost 100% manufactured in-house so that we can maintain the quality control. Even the little things like your little detents are made in-house on our Swiss machines. The springs aren't crap from China. Those are made here in the United States, in fact in Utah. They use 17.7 stainless spring wire, and it's US spring wire, so it's fully DFARS compliant, wound on German machines, fully heat treated. So again, you know, there's a lot of attention to detail. Well, your handguard, because it's an extrusion, is 6061 aerospace grade aluminum. You have a 7075 T6 aluminum billet machine uppers and lowers. You have a machined aluminum injection port cover. The bolt carrier is titanium and DLC coated. End plates are machined aluminum, 7075, and then your buffer tube, 7075 aluminum, and then some of the other parts are basically machined steel. 17.4 stainless on the muzzle device, and those are nitrided. Barrel is 416R stainless. That's the AR-X Lightfighter, and it's available now.